Hello and welcome back to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. It is May 2023 here in the northeast of England, and I would say, okay, we've had our rain, but it's just this week that I feel that the temperatures are rising. We are having more light in our days, and we're moving up to that summer solstice kind of period, so the energy is gathering to that peak June 21st this year. So yeah, I feel it sort of being mirrored in my body in terms of wanting to get outside more, wanting to move my body more, having more energy, then also realizing that it goes hand in hand with rest, and I'm still leaning into my rest practice, even having some granny naps or nana naps in the afternoon. If my body so calls for it, I do it. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. Thank you. And I'm also grateful. 1, rest is part of my healing practice. 2, within this conversation with Lateisha Davine Lovelace-Hanson, we do touch upon rest and how sometimes, because of our circumstances, not just within our lives, but which has been passed on within our lineage, that, a couple of days rest isn't going to cut it. And maybe you need a year or more of rest. But in order for this to be restorative, it has to be safe. You have to be feeling safe in order to rest truly. So we touch upon this, and I think it was the last episode I was talking about selling each episode. And really this one, oh my gosh, it speaks for itself. It really speaks for itself. There's so much goodness, wisdom, beauty, and connection within this conversation. And it's one of those, again, I do take pride in what the Earth, Sea, Love podcast brings to you. And there's sometimes there's certain episodes that just land at that particular time, at that right time, that you need to be hearing it, you need to be present, you need to be embodying it. And this is one of those episodes that happened. We recorded it in March, and as I say, it's now May. But in that time in between, I needed to circle back around, spiral back around to this conversation, editing it, hearing it again, letting it land within my body again. We talk about needing those spaces to repair, rest, and imagine. And this is one of those spaces that will just keep on giving to me, and I hope will keep on giving to you. The struggle is real. We say that. Lateisha says that within here. And even though, we touch upon that nature connection, which is beautiful, but which is also has its edges, its sharp, ugly edges, but how we can still be feeling good, safe, and loved on. And the final message from Lateisha, when I ask people who are usually on, what do you want to share? You want to tell our listeners about what's coming up for you, or what's happening for you, or what you want them to tap into. Lateisha's message at the end wasn't a selfish one. It was a case of like community, and it was like, we've got this. We're gonna be all right. That is, just a phrase, but that encompasses Lateisha and B and what they brings into the world, their energy, and it's just like that revolutionary, liberatory spaces that they create, and that equals community. And I needed that reminder. I needed that reminder today. I'll need that reminder tomorrow, because sometimes we forget. Sometimes we get distracted, and sometimes taken out of the game. So yeah, thank you, Lateisha, for taking the time to sit down with me and talk to me. And thank you, Lateisha, for all that you be and all that you bring into this world to create community and to create sharing and to create safe spaces of healing and reflection and connection. Anyway, enough of me babbling on. Let's get into this episode. You're gonna love it. And oh yeah, and maybe you could, after listening to this, get in touch with me or Lateisha and share, how did this land with you? How did this offering touch you or make you feel? We always appreciate feedback or comments, but it would be really good to start a conversation around what's brought up within this episode for you. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I'm loving that shirt.
Oh, thank you.
That is so weird, because this morning I pulled a card from the African Goddess Rising Oracle, and it was Kasana or Kasani that I got, which is all about, she's a high priestess, and it's all about that energy and frequency and about aligning with it. And she's bathed in this rainbow sort of like, no kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And for the first time, I made the connection between our chakras and the rainbow. Yes. Do you know? And but that was a childlike glee for me.
Yeah. When you're like, oh, I've connected that dot. Yeah.
So thank you for that, because that is just reinforced it. And the message is telling me is, instead of thinking about what you want, think about how you want to feel. And it's nothing new. It's nothing new, but I just needed that reminder.
100%.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need those reminders, those affirmations, and they're reassurances. It's like, again, it's nothing we didn't know, but we need to hear it. We also need it to be heard back to ourselves.
Yeah.
I yeah, I feel that. I
Yeah.
feel that. Also, it's so potent that we're doing this today. 'Cause obviously, it was the full moon. The
Yeah.
timing of this is really feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just realized this morning, because I've been thinking, oh, full moon's coming, and then this morning I was thinking, oh my gosh, full moon was last night, and it's the sap moon, and I was doing some work around it beforehand, around that idea of sap and how it's waking up and going to the extremities of the plants and coming alive. But I've still got one foot in winter.
100%. Listen, it was snowing. I was like, we're not done with this. We're not done with this season. This season's not done with us. There's more to feel through. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, and it's okay. That's okay.
It's okay. Also, I'm wondering, have we ever met in person?
No, we haven't.
Have we?
No.
It's all been online.
Tis that. Yeah. But I don't want to make the assumption that I know you, because, I really appreciate that we're sitting down today and having this conversation. But I feel that I don't know if it is your energy in a sense. We met through a workshop, and I think it was the Scottish writers, and it was about water.
Yeah.
And that is what drew me in, because for me, water is sacred to me, and she heals me again and again and again. And it doesn't have to be getting into the sea, which I do, but just into a shower, man.
Yeah.
Drinking it, Yeah.
Got my multiple liquids with me.
Yeah, and it's a case of even doing the dishes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't mind doing the dishes because I am with water. She balances me out. She heals me, So I mean, but that's me. So I feel like I know you through water, okay? But yeah, let's talk about you. I'm sorry, we're going off on tangents, but that's what I do.
I enjoy the tangents. I'm bringing my candle closer. Like, I've got Sea Breeze scented plant candle. What you're saying, I was like really smelling it. I was really smelling. And so I in my preparation for today, I was like, I'm gonna like line up, arrange my space around me so I can soften into this conversation with you, because I do trust there is obviously a knowing between us. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have shown up. You wouldn't have facilitated. You wouldn't be facilitated as well.
Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you taking the time, not just to show up, but also to prepare yourself, to allow yourself to show up in what any way needs must, sort of thing. So let's just kick off, Lateisha, and let's tell me where you're calling in from, where you're situated, and if you can visualize, see anything, nature connection from where you are at.
Okay, so I'm calling in from Southeast London, specifically in Sydenham, very close to Forest Hill. I'm in my new home, which is a community land trust. Very excited to be here. This is a really, a big moment for me of embodying my beliefs and politics and spiritual practices in a very material way, in a really like grounded way. And I'm, in terms of what I'm looking around seeing in terms of nature, I'm in relationship with a lot of plants. I am in relationship with a lot of plant life and plant beings around me. I'm seeing onto many, specifically where are my eyes, which friend my eyes have landed onto a fern, a Boston fern, which is next to me. And this planty friend was gifted to me by a very good friend. And we've both been going through a lot in terms of our health. So this particular plant is very symbolic to trusting what our bodies and what my body is telling me that I'm still here and I'm growing and I'm healthy and I'm whole. It's been
Mm.
some challenges. Um, but yeah, we're still growing together.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
That's where I'm calling in from, and yeah, that's where my eyes
Thank
take me.
you. Thank you. And what do you mean community land trust? Because that sounds really significant. As you're saying, you're embodying your beliefs, your politics. It's not just, yeah, you're physically embodying it. Where is the community land trust? And the second thing is, how do you keep your Boston fur alive, man? Because mine are always dying off.
Mm. Let me start with that one. Let me start with that one. So I've been a keeper of many ferns, and some have not made it. Some have not made it with me through the many moves in my life. So
Mhm.
this one's new. This one's a new friend. They
Okay.
only arrived a few days ago. So
Oh,
we're in the early stages of working out our needs. And I'm
okay.
listening, I'm really listening to this fern.
Mm.
Yeah, I wanted to see how long how long I can keep this one with me. And the community land trust, so I'm a part of a building or a project, housing project called London CLT, so London Community Land Trust.
Mhm.
And really it's literally about people in the community, specifically this community, which is Lewisham Borough, having access to affordable homes where we are also in relationship with the land. So I don't like to use like the language of like ownership, but that is a part of the dynamic. That's part of the paradigm we're in. So we are essentially owners of the land into which this building, this housing project, has been built on. It's a really good model for like alternative affordable homes. There's not many community land trusts in London. I think there's actually only two,
Mm.
but there are others in the UK. And really, yeah, it's literally around community and land
Yeah.
homes. It really says it on the tin.
Yeah.
That's where yeah, so we're residents, we're homeowners, and we all get a say. We all get a say of how we want to move forward as a group of people in
Mm.
these homes. It's also been wild. It's the first time I actually met the people building my home. I met the architect, I met the construction team even. There's been a big process to get on the project. You couldn't just be anyone, you actually had to be like someone who's got a stake in community organizing and make a case as to why having been a part of this kind of project would, support us, to support me in my practice and
Mm.
various others as well. That's sort of like the around about kind of what it is, the outline. It's still very early days for me. I've only been here for 5 weeks. But yeah, it's secure, stable housing for like the first time in my life. And it's obviously not a part of the private housing
Mhm.
sector. That is, yeah. And when we move, we give back the home to London CLT, and another group or a person or a family would move in to ensure that it always stays within the community and people who wouldn't be able to like buy a house any other way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that sounds so beautiful. For me, it's sounding like, okay, we're a community or a commune that's taken over the
Mm.
land and we're living on it. And, and that is almost like going back to that of thinking like it's the community and, it's not about owning the property or the land in a sense. It's about being in connection with our surroundings, not just for self, but for
Yeah.
everyone. And to have that in a legal proper,
Mm.
like that's recognized of value, and this is how we want to operate is unique.
It's important. And it's also important
Yeah.
to recognize that this kind of way of making homes and building community literally came from the civil rights movement in America. That's the direct lineage of even the political legality, like the way, the model. So it does come from a justice like lineage. And and it's important that I and everyone here, we recognize that. So yeah, it's funny because it's yeah, it does go back. It does go back to ways that people, like ancestrally speaking, people have been living for time. And in many other countries, this is how it is. Like, it's just not how it is here in the UK.
Profit geared, capitalism and all that
Exactly.
jazz, and not about fostering community.
Yeah.
Because that is a supportive network, which I feel like we've lost in a sense. If
100.
we're in our own small space, protecting it, and I'm all right, Jack, and I'm just getting on with my own thing, and not being open to, I do know my neighbors in a sense. I know their names, but it's not a case I'll have them round and we'll discuss things and really get to know each other or support each other. So I love that. And I'm very jealous. I'm saying that is the feeling I'm having because I'm leading into my feelings. And I'm thinking but I am so, so happy for you, and also grateful that these things are happening in close proximity, not in another country, but actually in this country. So I'm going to see about what you've mentioned about around the country, that there's some others, and see where my local one is. And I'm drilling in deep because my word of the year is listen. And when I'm really actively listening, it means that I ask questions. Yeah. And I'm not trying to jump in and provide answers or, show my own knowledge. It's like, oh, I'm so wise here. No. I want to know more when I'm listening, when I'm really listening. So thank you for offering me the courtesy to ask these questions.
100%. 100.
Thank you. So let's think about, whenever I meet someone, they say, oh, what do you do? Oh, what are you working on, Sheree? I usually just come back and say, I'm creatrix. Yeah, because that means they have to ask more questions if they're really interested in me. For me, it comes down, who do we be? And I ask you that, who do you be? And you can be broad or specific. You can tell me what you do or what you don't do, or what's your values. But yeah, it's as broad, or answer it as you want. But who do you be, please?
Who do I be? So I am Lateisha Davine Lovelace-Hanson. I be a person who is essentially just trying to creating the spaces for healing, for reflection, for connection, so that we can never forget what's at work. And by that, what do I mean by that? What's at work? What I mean is a sense of needing to repair, needing space to rest, needing space to imagine ways of being in the world that do not cause harm, that actually illuminate and create space for where harm has happened, and therefore healing needs to be held, care needs to be enacted, space to really listen to one another, to really deepen. I feel like that's who I be in my essence, in my core. Like that's my emotional and critical context understanding of how I be. So in terms of like my soul purpose, I'm really just trying to stay alive. To be honest with you, I'm really trying to stay alive and keep as many of us alive, really awake and alive. So what that looks like in terms of practices or modalities or disciplines is that I'd say I'm an artist and social justice practitioner. I'm a facilitator. I create spaces for these very real ways of being to be understood and registered in the body. Like, this is not a metaphor for me. I work in metaphor as a writer, but this is not a metaphor, that this is tangible and real and embodied. So I move across I move across kind of creative space making as an organizer, as a poet. I was an actor for a long time and, was making my own work as a theatre maker, creating spaces in terms of like consultancy and things like that. But essentially, I'm really just trying to like fill out what feels right for me in this moment in terms of the stories that I want to keep and protect, and the stories that I want to ensure never get invisibilized again. So I think that's kind of like, who do I be? I bring to the surface what is often relegated to the shadow, what is often relegated to behind a closed door, and what it means to access those doors, what it means to open the door, what it means to move through it. I think that's what I enable through toolkits, through pathways. Yeah. Creating steps, envisioning steps. Yeah, I'm in my dreaming space a lot. I'm in my dreaming and imagining space a lot. That's where I am. That's where I make sense of who I am. And then I make choices of how I want to, how and if I want to, and when and where I want to like create containers for others to go there.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. But what was hitting me, you're just trying to stay alive. Yeah. And you're laughing there, but I'm not laughing because I see it as serious. It's serious shit, man.
Really is.
And I was doing something, and I'm not going to name names or what it was, but I was doing something, and I was saying about my own self-care, my own self-love, and my own healing. I'm not sure if even they got to the next bit, because I was saying I'm doing this because then I can show up better for others in society, doing my own work. So then I can, support others, encourage others, offer stuff and that. But they asked me, do you not think that's selfish?
No way. Who are these people?
Yeah.
It's like, where have you been?
Right people. They were right people. And I just thought, I got really angry at the sense that I do feel that I am. My sole purpose is to be in service to others. And I don't feel I can be in service for others, even on that basic level of like, okay, my kids, until I've sorted out my own shit, or I feel good. And, and it's not, and I don't see that as a selfish thing. It means it means that I'm doing the work on myself so I can show up my best version for others. That's how I see it. And I don't see that as selfish, especially if I'm thinking about community and all that. So here, like you've said straight away, I'm staying alive.
Yeah.
But then you do go on and say, I'm staying alive, providing these portals, these spaces for others to be awake and alive, And it's like, where's that disconnect there in seeing that? Sorting out yourself so you can help to be sorting out others. Oh, it's like, but that for me, I see that as a basic connection. I'm connected to you, I'm connected to nature. And in order to show up within this world and be a full, whole human being, I do have to sort out that self-love and that self-healing.
100%. And also, it's like for me, at the end of the day, this system will kill us. It's a fact, and it has been. So when I really listen and take all the history onto which is within my body into account, I must remember that my heart is open and big and generous, but my body, there has to be limits, there has to be boundaries. I think about the way that I saw my mum and my dad work themselves to the ground, and some of that work was in an income related context, some of that work was trauma related, some of that work, was a lot of stuff that just wasn't able to come out of the body and be released. So when it stays in, it was just always going on and on and around and around and around. And I just saw the amount of effort that it took to just get by. You know, the struggle is real. The struggle is real, and the struggle is there, and it's not to be taken lightly. And so I don't think it's selfish or luxurious or any of these strange ways that we've been taught to not love ourselves, you know. It's not selfish to want to take care of ourselves, to be able to take care of each other, to be able to take care of the land. You know, we're in a relationship whether we like it or not. So I'd rather be in right relationship. I'd rather find ways to really soften into what it means to be okay enough to feel my heart, to feel alive. You know, and some of that has been making painful choices. You know, I've had to, you know, so for example, when you were sort of sharing that example of that reaction, I was like, that's violent. The fact that you were spoken to in that way, that's a violent reaction from someone who just clearly does not want to get it, doesn't want to get it. You know, they could have listened and gone, tell me more about that. I've never thought about it like that, that you piqued my curiosity. But the fact that you responded from a defense, you know, a very white, fragile space, tells me that that is not a relationship that is going to serve you and protect you. That's not the kind of ideology that I know that I want in my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, on a level, I've really also had to be reconfiguring my, you know, what it means for me to take care of myself. And actually, in the last 9 months, I've had quite a lot of big revelations through, you know, through quite a challenging time for my body health, you know, my body mind health, where I really had to sit with, wow, I need to let myself receive care and play and love. Like I need to let myself receive it, you know.
Yeah.
um and that has really looked like, you know, just sort of stopping and acknowledging that that was hard for me to do, because even the narrative in my mind of like, oh my gosh, you know, kind of like you know, I'm more free than my ancestors. I'm more free. Like you know, my family's migrated here from Jamaica. Look, come on, like I've got to do the most. And I didn't realize just how deep those layers went. Like obviously on a level, I knew it was there and I could rationalize it, and I knew that that was not serving me. But on a somatic level, oh my gosh, like it really was painful to really shed that out of me when my whole body was like, I can't move. Like I'm really, really, really fatigued. I'm tired. Like this is, you know, gone beyond the point of, you know, needing a couple of days off or a week or a holiday. Like this is actually, I'm talking like a year, you know, minimum. And a lot of work to be in that restoration. So I really needed to be with the people in my life who allow me to rest, who are accountable for themselves. So therefore, I don't feel like that dynamic of me needs to come up. So actually, it's been a lot of like painful acknowledgement actually of like who in my life and where in my life do I feel rested and rested by, you know, because I can't do it on my own. We shouldn't be ever in this place where we think we have to do these things on our own. That doesn't make no sense. Like, I'm really about community, and basically, I'm about revolution. I'm about liberation. You know, that's what I actually mean when I use the word community. I'm actually about taking. I'm actually about resourcing those who I feel called, who are called to purpose, who are called to revolution, and what it means to organize around that, you know. And energetic organizing is just as important, like I mean in terms of energy and spiritual organizing is just as important as you know, kind of like in action order or organizing, you know. They go hand in hand, but you've got to know which one you need more of. Do you know what I mean? At each point, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just really, yeah, that kind of hit home to me of like, I'm really grateful that I have cultivated folks and frameworks friendships, people them in my life who really understand these things on a real deep body embodied level. And therefore it means I feel safe enough to rest. I feel safe enough to feel these feelings, because they are there whether we want to look at them or not. You know, they're there, and there's some painful truths. There's some painful truths in it. You know, like when I'm more rested, I connect more into my dreams, and the things that are coming through my dreams, they're rago. They're not easy. Like, you know, they're not easy. They're not easy messaging, ancestral messaging, descendants even. You know, and therefore for me, it's important for me to work out how I sort of like translate those messages into practice, into modes, into a workshop, into a curatorial project, into a book. Like I need these channels. But I need both ends of the channel to be awake and well. I need them to be well. And for me, it's in this moment what it means to really feel out what it means to really take care of myself is, you know, has kind of come from collective community ways of being 100%, but it's also really also about like, what do I need as well? You know, what does my heart really need? Yeah, it's a beautiful, magical
Yeah.
moment, but it's also these are painful truths, you know. These are painful truths because I also have to grieve my former self. I'm grieving my people. I'm grieving those around me. I'm like, gosh, what if, you know, I often think, what if my elders had this in this sort of moment where they could even do that for themselves, like, or even just be registered and heard, you know, like, I hear you're tired today. I hear you need a bath today. Let me run it for you.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh my,
So yeah.
like you said it, you know, I said initially that, you know, I've been thinking today, not what I want or how do I want to feel. And safety was the first thing that I said to myself, you know, I'm journaling here, is that I want to feel safety. And you just said that, safe enough to rest. Yeah. And you know, everything you just said there is beautiful and painful. I'm so pleased that you've taken this time to rest safely and have those people around you to be able to do that. Because I said to myself that I'm taking the first 3 months of this year off. And it has been to rest. You know, I had to work hard in order to get that cushion or that buffer,
part.
you know,
Yeah,
to
I
be able
do
to do
know.
that, you know, and I recognize within that there is a freedom and there's a privilege in that.
Yeah.
But just what you were saying there is that I haven't, where these feelings are coming, I don't felt that I've been able safely to do that rest. And just you saying that now, I recognize that I've had this rest. I am still resting, but it hasn't really been safe to do so. So for what you just said there is like, yeah, that is a beautiful thing. But the flip side is like, why is it a case that it has to be?
Yeah.
you know, so yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you touched upon the stuff in your Instagram bio. It has body, nature, dream, channeling. And I think you've touched upon that. But I'm interested in 2 things. How does nature come into your practice or your beingness? And how is this also maybe informed by your ancestors? Explore that for me. Because, you know, I'm sitting here listening, taking it all in, you know, so much wisdom. So please keep it coming.
Thank you. I am of the earth. I am made quite literally of, what is it, 60 to 80% water. 50% of my DNA is a shared DNA with trees. You know, they are our ancestors. Trees in many a kind of context and culture and indigenous indigenous frameworks, trees are the standing people. I was reading Braiding Sweetgrass actually, and I really loved when Robin Wall Kimura sort of said that in her like tribe and her native culture, trees are seen as standing people, you know. And I'm like, yeah, they are. They really are, you know. And my relationship to the elements, to air, to land, soil, earth, water, fire, you know, is the relationship I have with myself. My own heat is the fire, is the sun, you know, my own passion, my own kind of what's happening in my sacral, you know, my water, my grief, my tears, my like my, you know, what feels good for me, my pleasure, you know, my air is literal, my life force. So it makes sense for me to see myself in relationship to where I come from, you know. Um, I think in terms as well of like really understanding or unlocking where this relationship or where I became aware of this relationship, because we're in relationship. And I think what this actually is what I notice is that unless we come into the world with this relationship already very clear, already solid and alive, and then over time, literally because of the you know, in terms of what our system does, what dominant culture does, in terms of what white supremacy does, what cis het patriarchy, you know, racial capitalism does, it severs, it makes us disremember, misknow this relationship. It makes us not understand it, even though it's our truth, our knowledge. You know, it's the most greatest epistemology. And I think about in terms of my how I started to really come into aware of what I was aware of, you know. It is through when I allowed myself to write or read through it, to walk through it, to move through it, finding dance, finding rituals that helped me to connect these dots again, to really remind myself of what I'm connecting through, you know, moving as if that through like movement and movement practice, moving as if I'm in water. And it was like, gosh, I need to go. I don't need to move as if like the water is within me. So really starting to feel like when I started to really open myself up to really registering and being with with what we call nature, like nature as a way to connect, I feel better. Like I feel myself. I feel like all the feelings within myself, nature or nature relationship can hold. So when I'm like going for a walk in local park or a forest, when I'm swimming in open water, going for, you know, what is called a wild swim. I just think that's a swim. I mean, it's wild. I find it was wild. It's cool, but it's just a swim, you know. You know, it's amazing what happens in my body, you know, all of these responses. I read somewhere or a friend told me that, you know, there's obviously a like, kind of like what's it called, a grounding level in terms of like our electrons, quite literally. We ground, we literally ground when we're barefoot on land, you know, whether that's sand, the sand dune, or the soil around the back of your garden, you know. Or when I'm swimming in bodies of open natural water, I feel held, I feel respected, I feel, yeah, I feel like I'm safe to feel, I'm safe. And it's that word again, safety. So I'm invested, you know, when these good feelings, when these endorphins are being literally released, I'm invested in what happens to the natural world, which is my world. You know, we've been taught to, you know, see what happens here in capitalism as separate to what happens in the natural world. And they're obviously not, you know, they're obviously not. And it's about me connecting and creating space for this one world to exist, which is my world. You know. So yeah, how I kind of like explore or like channel how I feel in this way, I definitely make space for in my art practice and in my facilitation practice. I feel resourced. I feel filled up, you know. And when I think about, you know, in terms of how slavery, how the legacy of slavery is playing out, which is like the history or the lineage I'm coming into this conversation with. There are generations in my line whose relationship with the land was so distorted, you know, who were put in relationship with land, with sugarcane specifically, in a way that was so dehumanizing, so brutal and so violent that the rupture of that is still very present in even in how I think, like, because it's there, it doesn't just go away. So what I'm doing is creating space to be with that. So when I'm like tending land, I think about only a few generations back what it meant to tend land, what it meant to tend and defend land, you know, um, what it meant to be a fugitive, to flee, to run from that land, you know, what it meant, you know, that's fugitive feminism. What it meant to have that response, that nervous system response kick in. I'm out of here. I'm flying. I'm going up to the hills. I'm going up with all the, you know, all the others who are up there, marooned ones. What it means for that same response in my body when I think about what makes me anxious or what I feel is anxiety inducing, you know, what it means to be with that response and actually be like, okay, but I'm safer now. Thank you, those of you who are in my heart still. Like, thank you for telling me there's something about this situation that's a bit off, and I need to address it. You know. So I'm the reason why I'm bringing these two kind of aspects is because I think oftentimes when I'm in conversation around kind of like Black feminist ecology specifically, there's a leaning into the more kind of what is called like, or what quote unquote, or not quote unquote, I don't know what I'm quoting, I'm not quoting anyone. Like, you know, that kind of like the niceness of it. It's nice to be out in nature, going on a really lovely hike. It's nice. It's nice to go for a beautiful sea swim. It is. I love it. I love my cold water dips. But there's also another edge to it, which I feel needs to be aired. I need to air it. I need to air. I'm like, listen, like there might be some days where I'm not sure about going down to look at the sea because that's an Atlantic Ocean. Like, how do I want to, you know, actually I want to be with the water, but I don't know if it needs to be that body of water, you know, right now. I'll come back next week and see what I'm saying because there is also that edge. And, you know, for example, like I was in Senegal a year and a half ago, and it took me a minute, actually. It took me a minute to build up the capacity to get into that water, to that body of water from that shoreline. And it was amazing. I felt joy. I felt such a deep pleasure. I was laughing, I was giggling. Me and my friend, and we made some other friends, we were there. We were just out playing. We were playing in that water. And I thought to myself, wow, like that was good for my inner child, but that was good for the inner ancestors within me to to really to really feel that level of fun, you know, on that shoreline. And then I came out the water, I had a nice little drink. Did some sunbathing and shit. I was just living life. So, you know, on those days I was living life, but I also did need to take care of the parts of myself that was still angry and griefful. Um, I think that's why it was so joyous because I was bringing that in. It was in my body, you know. Um, so yeah, there's a lot in my relation or how I see or feel into my relationship with what we call nature. I'm saying what we call because it's yourself, like it's me. Yeah, and it's important that I feel like when I'm in kind of spaces that are very heady around like climate injustice and you know what is called climate crisis. I'm like this is not new. Nothing about what's happening right now is new, and I do know that I know with every fiber in my body, this is about how we repair and heal what colonization has done and been doing. And giving land back is one of them. Is one of those very liberatory, basic liberatory points that just needs to be happening. And to really do the work to really be with what it means to rest and belong, to create a sense of belonging in our bodies, in and on the land we're on, and in what way. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more I could say. I'm sorry. There's so much more I can say.
What you're saying, sorry for you, oh my gosh. It's like, it's okay, my mind's blown because I can't hold it all, but my body is just saying yes, yes, yes. And just that thing that you were saying, that idea, like sometimes, I can't get into that water, I just like, not today. And that is like so me. And I haven't thought about it on that level. There's days that I can't get in quick enough, and it is that joy that and feeling held and feeling safe. But there's days that it's like, no, I can't do that today, and it is a physical reaction to it. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm uncomfortable in my body, and I can't do that, even though I know it heals and brings me joy. And having you say that because of that ancestral knowledge and knowing that is in my body, it's like, I've never thought of it like that before. I haven't, but I have, because I write about seascapes and the trauma that has happened in water for our people. I've kept it at a distance, I've kept it at a distance. Even though in the next sentence I'll talk about me and water and fear of going in and all that jazz, but to match it together, it's like, oh yeah, my body's saying, oh yeah, I know those edges, and that's okay. That's okay. And what you're saying, to air it, it's airing it, yeah. And I haven't been airing it, man. I haven't. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Just a few more things before we finish, because I'm looking at the time, and I think you've mentioned it, fugitive feminism, and somebody, Dal Kula, shout out to Dal, has talked about creative fugitivity, and we've been talking about it. We do these text messages to each other, verbal ones. What do you call them? Audio messages.
Yeah. Voice notes.
Yeah. And we talk about our thinking, stuff that's happening in our lives, but also what we're reading, what we're writing, what we're thinking, and we're, creative fugitivity. And it is, there's some ancestral passing down there of that fleeing and freedom. So I'm interested in how this translates into your writing, because I have read somewhere, I mean, again, it might be Instagram, it's like burning eye.
Yes.
You've got words are coming out in your own space collection.
Yes.
And I think that's awesome. Congrats, and keep putting it out there when it's coming, when this physical thing is coming. But please, can you talk about these words that are coming out, and have you been applying creative fugitivity? What does it mean? What does it mean to you?
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Sheree. Honestly, I feel really I'm feeling really seen. I just want to take a moment. I'm feeling really seen in our conversation today. And thank you as well for moving it into being like, you've also got, you're well done. Like, you've got this collection coming out, like, and how that has come to be, and how I've needed to create space for my outlet, for my responsing, for what was happening in my body and what's been happening in my body, and needing a way to kind of put it somewhere. Yeah, this book is definitely a place where I'm not creating anything new. All the material is from 10 years of very intentional writing practice, very intentional daily journaling, poetry, playwriting, essaying, messages, affirmation, echoes, character voice, reminders and reassurances, dreamscaping, dream writing, dream remembering, letters to loved ones who are here and in physical form, and loved ones who have moved on and transitioned, funeral rites, readings. Yeah, it's a place where I'm going to put, it won't all fit into a 30 page collection of 35 pages. But like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with some of my experiencing being it's like a place holding, a place making, you know? Um, and I think about it in terms of, when I leave physical form, when I die, this collection, this book will still be here. It's about legacy for me. It's about archive and really being active in how I no longer want to shoulder the burden and the violence of, erasure. Black women, Black femme people, Black folks of marginalized genders, queer folk, disabled folk. I sit within all these, all these spaces, if we're going to use labels, have been so misremembered and invisibilized. It's not even a joke. It's like really disgusting. It's nasty, actually. It's nasty. This process for me has been really looking at where I've also made myself smaller, where and when was I told to be small? Where and when was I told that my world inside of me had no place, had no outlet, couldn't be reached? I'm a mystery. I have to circumvent. If I'm going to do something, I have to like be subversive about it. I have to circumvent things, even in, I'm just fed up of it. I'm done. So it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of inner work to arrive at a point where I was like, nah, like I deserve this. Actually, I deserve this outlet for my responding, my trauma response. Actually, in some way, my trauma response is to release. My actual truth of my trauma response is to release. You know, it's like when you've gone through, so I've gone through a lot of painful things, and this space I need to be held and cared for so I can release it, I can share it, so it doesn't just stay in my body. So in many ways, I see this as an access need. This is a real access need. This book, it is. And actually seeing it like that has meant I've been so much more compassionate with myself, to actually be like, clearly I just needed, I needed 10 years. I needed 10 years to feel like regulated enough in my body, have my basic needs met, be in stable housing. I needed to get a lot of things in place, actually. I needed to ensure I've done so many different kinds of therapy, so many different kinds of energetic and healing practices, to have my relationships, my kind of like my ways onto intimacy is like in terms of open relationshiping. I have my needs met in that way. You know, my family needs met in that way. Like I've taken care of my niece. Things would, and therefore maybe I just needed to arrive at this point where I feel like, okay, I can let all these things out, and not feeling ashamed anymore, not feeling like, oh, I should have been doing this when I was in my 20s, like I had more energy for it. And gosh, when I was sort of coming up in poetry, people, they've gone off now and doing all these huge things, but it's like, actually, I don't want those things. I don't want to be some artistic director of a piece of shit theater that's like not doing anything for anyone. Actually, they're just all about power. Did I want that? Did I want to be head of some whatever? Like, no, actually what I needed and wanted was to feel like good and safe and loved on. So like those things are good for some people, but they weren't actually good for me. Like it didn't feel right in some situations where I was told that was what I needed to aspire to. I was aspiring to actually be okay, like be well. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know what you mean. I know what
For real. So I've really unlocked and unearthed and moved through unshaming myself, like really unshaming myself and just being like, no, like I've taken this time to really know who I am. You know, I didn't really know who I was in this way 10 years ago when I was 23, 24. I didn't. Burnout teaches me things. It teaches me a lot of things, and it's taught me a lot. And I actually really listened to it. I really, really listened to what was actually happening. So this book, like, I feel really open and easy about it. I feel very easeful about it. It's a big deal, but I feel very easeful about it because I know that that I've also cultivated, you know, people who actually want to know what I'm about, because actually I want to know what they're about. It's reciprocal. Like, there's this difference between audience and community. I always knew I wanted community. I didn't really want an audience. Like, actually it's about the relationship that my work has in the world and in people's lives. And that is why I make space for that part, like even doing this today, like you participated in an offering of mine in a workshop, and now we're here. It's about the give, and it's about the relationship. It's about how we see each other. So I hope and I feel and I trust that this book with Burning Eye will be a part of my legacy in this way. And it's with respect to those who I feel who have, who created space outside of what we've been told, to do and feel, outside of, outside of whiteness, outside of power hungry, elitist, assimilatory kind of like ways of being that are actually just replicating a lot more trauma and violence. And I really feel like we can do better than that. And I take things, I consider these things in my practice and what I put out. Yeah.
Thank you.
What I run with, even.
Yeah, man. I'm enjoying what you run with. I am, and I just think it's such a shame. But no, let's look at it. There's such a shame that it's a case of it's only going to be 30 pages. But as you say, it's a placeholder, it's a place marking, and I'm hoping that there's more to come. That you are getting out your words, your practices, your energy, your love, on your own terms.
Yes.
And that's what it's about. It's on your own terms. And because it is on your own terms, there is an easiness about it and an openness about it, because we're not perpetuating the system, we're not feeding it, and we're doing it in a revolutionary way. And outside of it, it's a case of like, I wish we could burn it all down and have these basis of community, love. And I'm all about the love. I'm all about the love as its foundation, because it's so difficult at this moment for others to envision something different, something better, while we're still within the mesh of this. And that's where dreaming does come into it. So I just want to say so many thanks to you, Lateisha. I'm so pleased that you're good, you're safe, and I hope you're loved on. Yes. And anything you want to add, or what we haven't touched upon that you want to slip in there, please do that, because in the show notes we do have links to everything. But if there's anything coming up that you want our listeners to know, that you want them to be part of, or to be part of your community, please speak now.
Thank you. What do I want folks to know is that we're going to be all right, nah, for real, like, we're going to be all right. We've got this, we've got this. And I'm saying that because I also need to hear that. I need this. I need to know this, that actually we're doing it. We're going to be all right. We've got it. We've got everything we need fully. And just, the usual as well, the usual things of staying in touch. Love to hear what folks are feeling into right now by listening to our conversation today. I really, that gives me a lot of pleasure, actually. It gives me a lot of pleasure to know where my energy is going and in what way and what happens. That's a part of the receiving. anything else that's coming up for me in terms of practice? I'm needing support in building a website. So if anyone's listening to this and has those kind of skills, that get in touch. For real. It's also about me asking for help and asking for support. And I'm not about trying to make out these things can be done on their own. Yeah, I'm really happy to have been in conversation with you today, Sheree. It's given me a lot of pleasure and joy. This is an exciting time. Yeah, this is just an exciting time, I feel. It's a very potent time. The last couple of years have been really, 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 really hard and heavy for a lot of us. And yeah, I'm definitely coming through quite a big wave of despair. Like, if I'm going to be really honest, like I definitely fell into a lot of despair and grief. And if it wasn't for, people like yourself, people who are in close proximity geographically to, as well as digital community, who remind me and help me remember who I am, community co-regulation for real, and like support systems like this, like I was really, yeah, it took a toll. Things took a toll on me. And, I'm saying that because I feel like also to visibilize that folks, people like me, like you, and those of us, we really need to hear it back. We need to hear folks tell us when we've done good to, like, well done, like you've arrived, you're arriving, you're still here, you're worthy, you're worthy of this world. Your love is here and present and alive. So yeah, I'm saying that to you, I'm saying that to me, and I'm saying that to those who are listening who've had their like interest piqued. Yeah, come through with the knowledge. We really do, and actually do come through with it, come through, doula your knowledge in, because we need more. We need more of us in this world doing these kind of things. Who are creating these pathways, So yeah.
Thank you. I love that, because I was just reading today, because I've got a workshop coming up around compassion, and I think it was a quote by Karen Armstrong, and it's like something about despair is let me see if I can find it, because you've mentioned it in both. It's like despair is a dangerous thing, because once people are despairing, it means they have no hope. And they resort to extreme measures. And you started with that hope there when it says anything else, you're saying, we've got this, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. And I love that, because that is where I'm coming from. It's realizing the situation that we are, calling it out, airing it, being with it, but then also believing and actioning and being hope and love, to combat it or to work against it. So I see you, and I so appreciate you, for being here with me today. And when you're out there in the world doing your thing, being you, I see you and I appreciate you. And yeah, I can only say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Take good care of yourself for the rest of the day as well.
You too. You too.